These two boxes that I'm holding in my hand are two of the most popular Japanese booster boxes in modern times. In my left hand, I've got Eevee Heroes, and in my right hand, I've got Blue Sky Stream. Together, these sets form part of Evolving Skies. Both of these sets are extremely valuable, and they're pretty similar in price, but which one is going to come out on top in the next few years? Let's get straight into it. Hey guys, it's Pokemonster TCG back with another investment video today. In today's video, I thought I would discuss Eevee Heroes and Blue Sky Stream. Without a doubt, the two most popular and expensive Japanese Sword and Shield booster boxes. Now, why have I decided to talk about it today? Well, just yesterday, the simplified Chinese TCG released its equivalent of Eevee Heroes and Blue Sky Stream. On my screen, you'll see I have the cover art for the set, which is called 九彩绘聚 in Chinese. This means 9 colors gathering, which I guess is a pretty good summary of the evolutions, although there's only 8 of them. As you can see, the simplified Chinese TCG has done some bespoke artworks for the set. And this set is going to be separated into two halves. The left side, or the A side, has the Eevee Heroes alt arts that everybody wants, together with some CSRs from VMAX Climax. And then on the right hand side, we've got the Mew side plus the Rayquaza side. So actually the B side I think is going to be really underrated because it has the Rayquaza VMAX and Mew VMAX. So the next thing that we need to do is look at the set lists for these sets. When we're trying to assess which one is going to do better in the future, we obviously have to look at what cards are within that set. Now, the impact that the set strength has on the future value of a box is variable depending on the set and depending on how far into the future you're looking. But that in itself doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at the set lists. I think most people that are watching my channel are going to be familiar with the set lists, so I don't want to spend too long, but I do want to draw out some of the unique points of these sets. The most unique thing about this box is that every single V or VMAX Pokemon is an evolution. You look at the set list, every V or VMAX, as I'm showing you, there is none that is not an evolution. So that means as your baseline, when you're paying $400 to open a box like this, you get 4 V cards, 3 to 4 V cards, and 2 VMAX. All of them at least will be evolutions, even if your hit is not good. And then looking at the hits again, you can see that every single SR Pokemon card is an evolution and is followed up by an alt art to it. That means that there are 8 evolution V alt arts in the set, which is much higher than the standard regular Japanese booster box for Sword and Shield. There are only 2 trainers in the set, which is probably because the amount of the SR Pokemon has compressed the number of trainers that there can be. Again, if you are chasing an evolution, that's a good thing, because there are only 2 potential slots plus the gold cards. Now, this is the most memeable hit. It's the Gordy, so it's not a good hit. The Aroma Lady, I would say, is still pretty good, but what you're aiming for when you're opening the set really is the VMAX alt arts. When we look at this again, there's 4 times more VMAX alts in this set than in a usual Japanese set, where you can usually only get 1. You have the Leafeon, the Glaceon, then we're going to go on to one of my favorite ones, which is the Leafeon, and then you have the most iconic card from the Sword and Shield block, bar none, which is the Moonbreon. Next, we're going to move on to Blue Sky Stream, and the first thing that you'll notice when you're looking at the set strength is already it loses to Eevee Heroes from the V and VMAX point of view. You got a Trevenant, stupid tree, sorry to any Trevenant fans out there, but I would not want to be pulling this if I paid $400 to open a box. When we look at the rest of the Vs and VMAXs, you'll see there's a very cool Volcarona, which is drawn by Kawaii, but again, it's not going to be comparable to Eevee Heroes in popularity. But the main theme of this set really is based around Dragon Pokemon, so we have a Gyarados here, V and VMAX, then the Dragonite, plus a Rayquaza V and VMAX. Moving on to the hits, we have, unfortunately, the SR spread is a lot more variable than Eevee Heroes. Got the Trevenant here that no one would want to pull. But when we move on to the alt arts, there's a very nice Medicham V, albeit again, this is not comparable to the Eevee Heroes alts. And as this is a more normal set than Eevee Heroes, you only get 3 V alt arts plus 1 VMAX alt. But this one is comparable and competitive with the Eevee Heroes alts. got the Sleepy Dragonite there, drawn by Atsushi Furusawa. And then probably one of the most S tier V alts in the game, it's the Rayquaza V, which has the Zinnia following up behind it. Moving on to the waifus, we've got the Shauna and then the Skull Kid, which is not popular, but Shauna and Zinnia are very popular. At the moment, the chips are down, so they're not worth anything at all, but if you believe that they'll pick up, then this set does have a good stack of waifu cards. And finally, we're going to move on to the HR Hyper Rare cards. Got a very nice Rayquaza VMAX Rainbow here, but the main chase of the entire set is going to be this beautiful Rayquaza VMAX alt art drawn by Anesaki Dynamic. I would say this is probably the second most iconic VMAX alt art in the game. Well, let's just see what the top chases of Eevee Heroes and Blue Sky Stream are worth. So you have the Umbreon VMAX, which is 2,300 pounds. This is Korean, but Japanese again, 2,000, 2,050. So let's say 2,133. So let's say that's around 2,600 US dollars. I'm just doing the conversion in my head, so sorry if I've got that wrong. And then you've got the Rayquaza VMAX 083 out of 067. So looking at the solds for the Rayquaza VMAX, this is actually rivaling the Moonbreon. Now, these two were sold by the same seller and have very different backgrounds, so I take that with a pinch of salt as to whether it's legit or not, but we can back that up with more Japanese solds here. 2,180 pounds, 1,718, 1,738, 1,936. So I would say it's a little bit below the Moonbreon, but not that far behind. Okay guys, so moving on to the next part, we're actually going to be comparing how I think these sets are going to be competing against each other in the next few years, let's say 5 years. Starting point, as per usual, we need to look at the current values. Best place to look at that, in my opinion, is eBay solds. So starting with Eevee Heroes, we got a sold of 331. Then you have a few solds of 360 with the best offer accepted. Now, it's hard to tell what those accepted offers are, but when you look at the surrounding sales of 344, 340, 321 pounds again, 365 pounds, I think we can say in general that the baseline price for Eevee Heroes at the moment is 340 pounds, which in US dollars would be 430 US dollars. Now, when you consider the fact that this set only came out in May 2021, which is less than 3 years ago, that is a pretty insane price increase, especially considering the retail price for Japanese booster boxes is 4,950 yen for Sword and Shield. They obviously upped it for Scarlet and Violet, but at the time I believe that's the retail price, and that in pounds at the moment is probably like 25 pounds, 30 US dollars. Moving on to Blue Sky Stream, what do the solds look like for this amazing set, which came out right after Eevee Heroes? We have a sold of 320 pounds, which is again going to be around 400 US dollars. We have one of 340 actually, which is rivaling Eevee Heroes. Then a few that are a bit lower, 295, 330, 290, 310, 320. So I think for Blue Sky Stream we can say it's very close. It's the closest competitor that Eevee Heroes has, but the baseline is probably not 340 pounds. It's probably 320, 310 pounds I want to say, which would bring us to about 380 to 400 US dollars. I think that is a fair assessment of the current values. If you disagree, let me know. So in this next part of the video, I'm going to need to make a decision on which set I think is going to do better. We've seen from the data that the chase cards are very close in price, and especially the sets are even closer in price. So what is going to be the determining factor, or one of them for me? We need to consider the print runs for each set. Now, from common knowledge, you might know that Eevee Heroes was printed a lot more than Blue Sky Stream, but I think let's put some numbers to that. So this is not a fully scientific method, but I think the PSA population report is a good way to check that, but we're going to do it in a very methodical way. So we're not just going to look at the total number graded, although that might start as a good starting point. So you have 100,000 cards total graded for Eevee Heroes versus 20,000 for Blue Sky Stream. I think we need to go a little bit more scientific than that. So what I'm proposing that we do is we total up all the V alt arts, because those are the desirable cards that people would submit for grading, plus any waifus in the set. So then that gives you a V card plus SR trainer chase population. Do that for Blue Sky Stream 2, and then we're going to compare it. So as you can see on my Word document, I've been very nerdy and added the total population of all of the V Alt Arts Plus trainers on the presumption that these are the desirable V cards that people will actually want to submit for grading. The reason why this is important is because when you look at the numbers on the PSA population report, you have to underpin it with an assumption that there are cards that people want to grade and that there isn't just a stack of them just sitting somewhere because people don't want to grade it because it's not a desirable card. In that scenario, then you don't really have the best representation of the population. So looking at Eevee Heroes, the V Alts plus Aroma Lady, and I've excluded Gordy for hopefully obvious reasons, is 55,568. Now looking at Blue Sky Stream, we have the Rayquaza V, Shauna, Zinnia, Dragonite, and Medicham. So we have a smaller pool of V Alt plus SR chases, and that gives us 15,574. So in very rough numbers, let's see how that totals up. We're going to be doing 55,568 divided by 15,574. That's going to give us 3.567. So what does this number mean? So far, on a very rough estimate, it means that for every Blue Sky Stream box that there are 3.5 times as many Eevee Heroes boxes. And that does match up with our general understanding that Eevee Heroes was printed way more than Blue Sky Stream. Eevee Heroes got a proper and massive reprint, I think towards the end of 2022. Now, we've done the V calculation, let's do the same for VMAXs. To start off, straight off the bat, I'm going to say that VMAX is probably an even better representation because the VMAX cards are really even more desirable than the V cards. So looking at this, you've got to remember that we can't just compare the Moonbryon population to Rayquaza because there happens to be 4 VMAX Alt Arts in Eevee Heroes. So when we add up the population for that, that gives us another 17,707 cards graded at PSA. And you look at the Rayquaza population, it's only 1,683. I think that is the greatest illustration of the disparity in printed quantities between these sets. Now, if I layer that on top of that, it's probably going to give me that there's 10 times as much Eevee Heroes out there from Blue Sky Stream. In reality, I think it's actually between 4 and 10 based on the VMAX calculations that I did, because VMAX cards will be even more desirable to grade than V Alts. I think with V Alt Arts, people, even though they are desirable, I think there are more people that are willing to keep them in their binders just because, let's say, Flareon V Alt Art at the moment is worth $200 or less. Whereas when you're looking at the VMAX Alts, as I've shown you before, the Moonbryon and Rayquaza are hitting 2.5 to 3K in US dollars, obviously. So at those price points, you have even more incentive to grade than for V Alt Arts, for which it's more acceptable to keep them in binders, I think. But I think the overall summary point for this segment is there's so much more Eevee Heroes out there than Blue Sky Stream. Now you might ask me, why does that matter? Well, in my opinion, when you're looking at the long-term growth of these sets, and in my definition that's in 5 years, I see that there is a realistic chance that Blue Sky Stream, based on this factor, could outgrow Eevee Heroes. Quantity does really matter when you're looking at long-term growth, and the reason why that is for me, I think, is a similar principle that I've carried over from my analysis of high-class sets before, is if there is too much quantity out there, that means that there is going to be some price resistance to further increases, because even a slight increase by 10% or 20% is just going to lead to that much more quantity flooding the market because people are holding it in their homes, right? Whereas with something like Blue Sky Stream, of which there is 4 to 5 times less than Eevee Heroes, even if the price goes up, and I think it will, there isn't that much supply to come onto the market to satisfy that demand. And I think that is the distinguishing factor between these two sets. Eevee Heroes is extremely popular, and Blue Sky Stream is extremely rare. That doesn't mean that Blue Sky Stream is not popular in itself. but I see this as a battle between two ideologies, one being popularity, the other being rarity. But I think rarity wins in the long run. So I think there's a realistic chance that Blue Sky Stream could outstrip Eevee Heroes. Now, to conclude this video, there is only one thing that I need to say. People are going to say I'm sitting on the fence for this, but it's something that I thought about after what I just said. There's one thing that could keep Eevee Heroes as the king of Sword and Shield, and that is the je ne sais quoi that people think of when they think about these sets. It's people's emotional attachment and hype to the sets, their memories of the sets when it came out. So far, when we've been doing these analyses, we're always using what I would consider to be rational, methodical, logical factors to analyze something. But sometimes in life, and particularly with collectibles, it's not always logic that wins. Sometimes, even if you have all the factors stack up, people can still be irrational, and that irrationality can still prop up the price of something. So even though on most counts, Blue Sky Stream has more reasons than not to outgrow Eevee Heroes, people's memory of Eevee Heroes is that it is the most hyped set of the Sword and Shield era. It is the most well-known, most well-remembered set of the Sword and Shield era, and it contains the absolute most iconic card of the Sword and Shield era, despite the fact that that card is 3 to 4 times higher in population than an equally desirable card, Rayquaza VMAX, which truly shows that the Rayquaza VMAX is way rarer. But sometimes people do, including me, have this illogical, emotional attachment to these sets, and that in itself is a valid factor to consider. So, to conclude, I think Blue Sky Stream has the right reasons to outstrip Eevee Heroes, particularly after the last sold values that we saw, but it might not turn out like that in the next 5 years. Let's see how it goes. This is just an open debate, my opinion. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.